we will talk about some Cardinals baseball as they finish up the sweep, doing what you're supposed to do to the Miami Marlins. Yesterday's finale, 1-0. You got a couple walk-off situations with Paul Goldschmidt the day before and Yadier Molina. And, Jim, the Cardinals did what they're supposed to do to the Fish and sweep them. And it is easy to say, okay, Miami, last place team, this is what you're supposed to do. But especially the last couple games of the series, you faced some dang good pitching. You faced Rogers, the lefty. You faced Sandy Alcantara, who's really, really good. So you beat some good pitchers, especially the last couple games.
You know what? The Marlins, they're not a great team, and they've never been a great franchise for the most part. But one thing they do well, when they go on their rebuilds, if you go back in their history, Charlie, they have some good young arms that come up through there. Now, they don't end up sticking around because they've always sold them off. But they're in that phase right now where they picked up a couple good draft picks. They made a couple nice trades, and they're using those arms. We saw Rogers, who the left-hander was one of their picks, and like 13th overall. And, man, is he good. He is really good. We saw Alcantara yesterday, former Cardinal pitcher, and I saw a note before his start yesterday. Average fastball velocity among starters in Major League Baseball, he's second behind Jacob deGrom.
Wow.
Alcantara. That kind of puts you in perspective how nasty his stuff can be. So you've had him. They've got that kid Lopez who's doing pretty well.
Pablo Lopez.
Yeah. They've got that's what they do. They pitch well, man. They really do. And they're in that cycle of getting those young arms where you're going to go, they'll make a run at something in a playoff spot at some point. Not this year, but maybe in another year or two. Those are the arms that are going to be sought after, but those are the arms that are also going to help them possibly make a run at a playoff spot. So they're legit. It's not like, you say, oh, you beat the bad teams. They're not awful. They got good pitching.
And remember, last year, they snuck in the weird COVID year. They were pretty dang good last year, where you mentioned the arms. You have Alcantara, you have Rogers, you have Pablo Lopez. Now, some of these guys aren't hitting this year like they were last year, but the Garrett Coopers of the world, Brian Anderson, with Jesus Aguilar. I mean,
everybody's best friend right there on the field.
And he's a little streaky here and there, but I mean, he can carry a team for a month or so. I also think you mentioned this about the Marlins, where when we think about the Marlins, we think about, okay, they always win, and then there's the sell-off. And they win, and there's the sell-off. And especially when they built that new stadium. And I remember the interview Dan Lebatard did with Rob Manfred, just crushing him for, what are you doing here to baseball in Miami? I will say this. Although the past, you have the highs of the 2 World Series, you have the lows of a couple years later, you're just getting rid of everybody. I do think that the Derek Jeter group, we should give them a chance to see how they're going to do it, because they may not be doing it that same way. Now, it gets back to our earlier conversation just about sports in Miami, where if you're not football, you better be good, because people aren't going to come there. There's too much to do. The weather's too great. You got the boats, you got the beach and all that. So for a sport like baseball, you better be good to draw people. But also, Derek Jeter's a pretty smart guy. He's a pretty smart guy. So I think we should also give him the opportunity. Let's see what he does for 3, 4, 5 years if he builds this thing differently.
Yeah, I don't think we're ready for a sell-off. I don't even think that's in his conversation. His conversation is, hey, I'm trying to build a franchise, a winning attitude, a culture here. Does that change in 5 years from now? It might, but right now he seems like he's a... And I also think it's Jeter, and that he's a proud dude. He's very conscious of his persona and what that represents, right? So he's not going to want, I wouldn't think, his franchise that he's involved with to be considered cheap, or, they're just trying to sell this thing off and get rid of it. That just doesn't strike me the way he wants to go about and being perceived, so to speak.
Here's another great component of that. Think about Derek Jeter and his championships with the Yankees. And if you look back at his whole 20-ish year run with the Yankees, where did they have the greatest success? It was early in his career when they had the team built from within, built from the farm system. They always talked about the core four. If you look at Jeter and Pettit and Posada, who alarmed us that he played, 17 years?
Yes.
Right? And Mariano Rivera. Those guys who came up, Bernie Williams, who came up through that system, and they win what? They win 96, you win 98, 99, 2000. Now, I know they got that championship in 2009, but if you're Derek Jeter and you think back to your own career, when did you have the great success, and when did things not go so well? It was after you built that team from the farm system. Remember, they gave out the craziest contracts. The Jason Giambi contract.
Teixeira was in there? Yeah.
Robinson Cano. I mean, Alfonso Soriano. There were so many guys there that they gave so much money to, and those teams didn't win championships from 2000 to 2008.
No,
now, They won again in 2009. They had A-Rod, but there were the years where they threw money at the biggest free agents. And I know they had success and they won divisions and got to the playoffs, but those teams did not win a World Series for 8 years.
Yeah, I want to see how he does this. It seems like he's doing about a very similar approach to your point with what he's doing with the Marlins. The one thing I want to also watch closely, and this will probably determine whether he sticks with it, do the people show up? Because he's got a new park. You can't use that as an excuse anymore. They got a dome, so you can't use rainouts anymore because it rains there at some point every day during the summer. But if they don't get people in the seats there, that just may be a lost cause, and he may move on at some point. But right now, it would be kind of neat to see if he puts this thing together, like you said. If they respond and they come out, maybe he can make that thing a go down there.
And when you're talking about the Cardinals, especially yesterday's game, here's what I really liked. Even though it's the Marlins, look, Alcantara's a very good pitcher that you beat, but the Cardinals were also able to win a game in a different way where Johan Oviedo, I understand the Marlins lineup, they're not gangbusters, but still for a guy like that, who, if everything was perfect this year, Johan Oviedo would probably be either starting in Memphis or maybe be a bullpen asset for the Cardinals. But for a guy like that, to go 7 shutout innings, and he did the John Gant there because he was battling out of a lot of jams. Now, the difference was he wasn't walking batters, but he was battling out of jams after allowing multiple hits in a couple innings there. But for Johan Oviedo to go 7 shutout innings, he needed a good outing like that. And then you also were able to win a game when you're, what are we calling them? Latino Heat or Latin Heat or I like this one, which nobody else liked, which was the Latino law firm of Cabrera, Gallegos, and Reyes. Nobody really jumped on that one on Twitter.
Okay.
But because those guys pitched the previous 2 games, so they were down, and you're able to win a game, a close game, 1-0 on a walk-off, where your bullpen assets were Andrew Miller and Ryan Helsley. And again, if this Cardinals team is going to do anything special this year, they need Miller, Helsley, and another guy. They can't have just 3 guys. They need to have 6 guys that you can rely on. And so it was nice to see a game yesterday that they win without the law firm, and Andrew Miller and Ryan Helsley were able to take care of business.
Finally, those 2 guys were able to step up. I don't know if I was on with you, but I mentioned that Miller looked pretty good on his first couple, stints back from his time on the IL, and I thought it was time to give him a chance to pitch in some high leverage situations. He got that opportunity yesterday, and he proved, thumbs up, right? He gets the pass. The one thing is Helsley, can you repeat that? Mm-hmm. That's the big thing. He has stuff. Everybody knows he has electric, power arm stuff. His problem is he can't repeat it, and he can't keep from walking guys. If he can figure out and do what he did yesterday moving forward, goes a long way to helping get this team back to a little over 500 and starting to legitimately challenge for a spot here in the division. Because they're only 3 games out, but they really need an opportunity for those 2 guys, and as you said, probably one more, to be a factor in high leverage situations for that team to be a winning baseball team moving forward.
And in the standings, where you go back 3 days ago, and you have the Cardinals 6 games out, and they're able to cut that in half over the course of this series. Now 3 games back when you have the Cubs and the Brewers both losing 3 in a row. Cincinnati taking care of business against Milwaukee. The Reds have won 6 straight games. So Cubs and Brewers still tied for first, in the standings, 38 and 30. Cincinnati hanging around 2 games back, and the Cardinals 3 games back. We don't need to mention the Pittsburgh Pirates, but the Cardinals
are bad.
The Cardinals, that 3-game deficit, 3 days later, it looks a lot better. It looks a lot better than what we were talking about where, man, things were going south and you were 6 games out in the standings.
It's amazing how much a week can change things. Did we have a name, John? Aaron. Aaron says he wanted to talk some.
On the phone line. Aaron, what's up, man? You want to talk some Cardinals baseball?
Actually, I prefer to talk more Marlins since I am, believe it or not, a diehard Marlins fan.
You're the one.
Yeah, I am the one since 1993, and since they came into the league. So 2 highs and a lot of lows. But, you're talking about our 2 studs we have. Actually, we have 3 studs starting pitchers, and Alcantara and Trevor Rogers and Pablo Lopez.
Mm-hmm.
But we got a few other guys in the system that are even higher rated than any of those guys were. He pitched some last year. They actually pitched in one of the playoff games against the Cubs, but he's been shut down all year. Sixto Sanchez.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I know Baseball America has him as the 11th overall prospect, but he came in the spring training this year out of shape, has been having shoulder issues all year long, and I think they're pretty much shutting him down for the rest of the year. We have Max Meyer, who we drafted 3rd overall, who's pitching in our Double-A in Pensacola, who's been tearing it up down there. He's the 3rd overall pick in the draft, and he's in the top 15 overall prospects. And we have another guy, Edwin Cabrera. He's just now starting to rehab and pitched a couple of games, and he's another top 40 prospect. So, we got 3 studs already, but we got more coming. The whole key is going to be can any of our hitters progress the way that our pitchers have? I mean, we got the pitching. It's just, our offense, as you saw, is terrible right now. It's, Jazz Chisholm has shown flashes of being a stud, but, again, being young, in a perfect world, he's still being AAA. You have Jesus Sanchez, which probably he did nothing this past week, but he's been tearing it up in AAA and so forth. So, and we have a couple high position player prospects, but again, they lost a whole year to the COVID, and you can take a batting practice all day long, but it doesn't replace real game experience.
Right about that.
So it looks kind of bleak right now, but it's just their hitting hasn't caught up with the pitching yet with building that team. And the key is going to be by the trade deadline. Will they trade guys like Sterling Marte and Jesus Aguilar, which I'd like to keep him when you consider you're going to have the DH next year. But, Sterling Marte, he's a nice veteran player, probably good in the clubhouse with the young guys, but I don't think he's a huge difference maker. And I'm afraid if you read, which worst thing you can do is read the internet, chat rooms, that kind of stuff. People are already, we're going to trade Sterling Marte and just the same old cheap Marlins or whatever. But somebody like the Yankees is going to overpay for somebody like that in a trade. I mean, at this stage of the game, their rebuild, it'd be stupid not to do it.
Right, and they also they traded for him last year, though, right? I mean, when the Marlins were competitive last year, and they went after
Marte.
Right. Which, they tried to add when things were going well. I think even if you're a longtime Marlins fan, you've been through all the ups and the downs and the rebuilds. You understand that this is not a year where you want to hold on to assets like that if you can build for the future. Right.
Like I said, Aguilar, you'd love to keep him because I think he's got a few years of club control left, and he's younger, and I just think he kind of adds a little bit more than what Marte does. But things are looking better, and like you said, though, with the ownership group, that's the thing. Everybody, all few Marlin fans are holding their breath on is when guys like Alcantara and that are eligible for free agency. Will we actually sign these guys, or will we, flip them to another team? I think that's the thing everybody is kind of wavering on. What's the Jeter group going to do? Is this going to be the same old, like with Jeff Lurie and Wayne Huizinga, where you get a great young star, and then you don't want to pay him and you get rid of him? I mean, the last sell-off, the Giancarlo Stanton contract, you're kind of glad to be out from under that contract. We consider how, that guy spends as much time on the DL as he does on the field.
Mm-hmm.
Yelich, I hate that one because no one that we got back has progressed or done anything. But, in the Ozuna trade, well, in hindsight, we got Alcantara, and, well, look at the mess he's in right now. So if you want to look at those trades, the Yelich one hurts. But the other two, it pretty much can live with. And here, any comments you have on the air. Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you, Aaron.
All right.
I like that. That's some good Marlins information right there. It is funny when you think back that they had an outfield of Christian Yelich, Marcell Ozuna, Giancarlo Stanton, and
couldn't win with it.
Didn't win anything. And it reminds me back to when I'm growing up. Remember that Royals outfield in the 90s? You got Johnny Damon, Jermaine Dye, Carlos Beltran.
Yeah,
in one outfield, and they all went somewhere else and had great success and won championships, different spots, and Johnny Damon with the Red Sox and everything Carlos Beltran did, and Jermaine Dye was great with the A's and the White Sox. But you had three studs like that in one outfield, and you're talking about some of these smaller market teams that just can't keep them long enough.
The death of Jose Martinez, or Fernandez, was what that whole thing crumbled right after that, because they had the one stud, and he was good to go with that group of outfielders you spoke of. You thought, you know what, maybe it's legit. They have pieces. And once that, happened, everything changed for sure with that whole organization. It's almost like, and I don't know it for sure because I wasn't around it, but you did get the feel that they felt it, with everything that was going on there, it was time to change the culture of whatever that was at the time. So
yeah, and them trying to win with that group probably ended that day. Because you had the stud ace in Jose Fernandez. You had stud position players. And just the tragedy of that. And also, would you have been able to hold on to him? Because Jose Fernandez was going to command a ridiculous amount of money. But when something like that happens, they had to basically kind of reshuffle the deck. And Sixto Sanchez, who Aaron brought up, remember last year, he was really good. 3-2, 3.46 ERA, made 7 starts in the COVID-shortened year, and struck out 33 in 39 innings, so another guy that the Marlins don't have this year. Cardinals hitting the road, taking on the Braves, but coming back the following weekend, you got all the giveaways that we've told you about. You got the Yachty Tumbler, you got Teacher's Night, you got the Soccer Jersey Night, and you got Pride Night. So join Pride St. Louis and the Cardinals for Pride Night at Busch Stadium Friday, June 25th, as the Birds take on the Pirates. With the purchase of a special themed ticket, fans will receive an exclusive Pride Cardinals cap. You got the gray on the front, you got the rainbow on the back, you got the white Cardinals logo, so you get the hat, plus a wearable rainbow flag. Get your tickets today at cardinals.com/theme. Couple more minutes here. I was reading this article from MLB.com a couple days ago, Mark Feinsand, and it says, trade fits for 9 players whose stock is rising. And I was chuckling because they throw out a player, and then at the end of each little blurb, they say which team would be interested, could use this player. And I was chuckling because the Cardinals were there for almost every single one of these players, starting with Jose Barrios, the right-handed pitcher from the Twins.
Yeah, he'd be nice.
So potential fits: Braves, Cardinals, Yankees. Charlie Blackmon, Rockies, potential fits: Cardinals, Mets, White Sox. I don't think the Cardinals are going to make a move for an outfielder. I could be wrong. I don't see that with such a need in the pitching department, starting and relief. So
much missing with pitching. They need bullpen and multiple starters at this point. So, yeah, I would think they would shy away and go with, especially if, and he's not an outfielder, but with Tommy Edman filling in at right field, you got Carlson and you got O'Neill, you really don't need an outfielder. You could use an extra outfielder, but that guy might be Bader when he gets back, and that'll solve that.
Here's the one I really laughed at. The next position player, Nick Castellanos. 2 years and a guaranteed $34 million remaining on his deal, but he can opt out at the end of this season. So potential fits: White Sox, Cardinals, Dodgers. Wouldn't that be great? Because he's now public enemy number one. And
Flex
it was,
man.
Right, Mr. Flex. I had to say, I also love the fact, even though Cardinal fans probably don't like this, but I like to be entertained. I like a good rivalry. I like fun. And the fact that the Reds put up those banners, and they put up a banner around Great American Ballpark, and one of them, because the Cardinals have this too, where you have pictures of your players around the stadium, and one of those pictures of Nick Castellanos is him flexing. Now, you don't see Jake Woodford, but you just see that picture of him flexing, and I'm sure that ticks off Cardinal fans, but I kind of love it.
Oh, yeah, that's a good thing. And he was fairly calm, by the way, when they came in here and swept the Cardinals.
Yeah.
I mean, he did damage on the field with, his play, but he wasn't shooting his mouth off or anything, although it was kind of fun to see Votto on Monday or Tuesday after that, kind of going, yeah, where are those brooms at? We had a lot of people who had their mouths shut when we were in town last week, so that was kind of cool. That kind of stirs the embers a little bit.
Stirs the drink a little bit. I like Votto as well. I think it's good for business when the Reds are relevant, just for the rivalries in the National League Central, because the Pirates usually are not a factor. But when you can have legit rivalries where there's some spice to the matchups with the Cubs, the Brewers, and the Reds, that's when things get really, really fun. So I don't think Nick Castellanos is coming here, but it was funny to see him as a potential fit with the Cardinals. Adam Frazier, potential fit: Giants, Indians, Cardinals. Trey Mancini. Here's one player that was not in this article a fit for the Cardinals, but he probably would be. Trey Mancini, because you do need...
If Frazier is, you would think Mancini would be similar in terms of a use that you could get out of him.
And then you have German Marquez from the Rockies, potential fits: Cubs, Cardinals, Yankees.
He's a pitcher. He's alive.
That's right. He has a
throw
pulse.
a strike. Yep, he's on the list.
No, it's just funny because, and you know what? It's true though. Every pitcher right now, every available starter or reliever, the Cardinals have to be knocking on the door, just seeing what it would take to get somebody like that.
Absolutely.
And the fact that now, look, it's just one series. It is the Marlins, but this second half of June, when the schedule really lightens up, okay, if you can get back to one game out as we enter July, things look a lot different in terms of how you feel about this team. And this team, if you add this, maybe we can sneak in there in a wild card spot. Or maybe if Flaherty and Michaelis come back in early August, we have a chance still to win the division.
Every arm available has to be considered, and you're right. When we started the week, there were 6 out. You're going, oh, my goodness. And let's put it in perspective, too. The Cubs looked all worldly, right? They were like, they are about ready to take off. Well, they just got swept by the New York Mets. It certainly changes your outlook on what they're doing. In fact, they started Robert Stock yesterday, who had no business starting the game. And he was out, I think, in the 3rd inning and had walked 4 or 5 guys. So all of a sudden you're going, well, wait a minute. Maybe their net pitching is not as good as we thought. You also saw, as you pointed out, the Reds sweeping Milwaukee. Milwaukee also, you had the feel that they were about ready to just take off. Well, maybe not so much. And since they've come back to the pack, Cardinals have inched their way back. 3 out at this point is nothing on June the 17th. A lot of things can happen, but you got to start knocking on the door, as we've talked about for a couple of weeks now. You got to find a couple of arms to help offset what's going on right now.
And that's why I think this series coming up, too. You got 4 games in Atlanta. You got Sunday Night Baseball. I know the Braves have underachieved. They're very banged up, especially on the pitching side right now. But I think they're better overall than their record. They're 30-35. They're 7.5 games out. But I do think it's a good measuring stick because they're a similar type team to the Cardinals.
Yeah.
So if the Cardinals go in there and they can win 3 or 4, that will be impressive to me. And look, the Marlins are in last place, but you swept them. It's not easy to sweep a series. And when you face Trevor Rogers, Sandy Alcantara, I'll give them all the credit in the world because those are 2 really good arms. We'll see what happens here with the Cardinals taking on the Braves for 4 in Atlanta.
I say one thing about Atlanta before we go. They are the first team to score 8 runs in back-to-back games and lose this year. You talked about their pitching struggles. They lost the Red Sox by scoring 8 runs the last both games. First time it's happened.
That sounds like some entertaining baseball then, maybe.
Yep, I think
some 9-8 scores we could see this weekend in Atlanta. Jim Heuer, as always, great stuff.